Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology. And it's my great pleasure to have with me today Merryman Cassells. I met Merryman at an astrology event in Sedona, where she lives, and I actually have a small place as well. And I just love her because we've got an awful lot in common, in so many ways. And her talk was fantastic at this Sedona astrology club event that I went to. Um, but one thing about Merriman is she keeps bees, and I live in the beehive state, Utah. So it's we've got the bee connection, and but also, she works with astrology and the Akashic Records. She's also a dreamwork facilitator. She says she weaves the celestial with the mundane, and there you go. I call myself the wisdom weaver. There you
Oh, I love
go. and and she like me, she really mixes mythology, mysticism, theology, sacred sciences, shamanic practices as well, lineages, and just everything. You're kind of a bit like me in that you kind of blend
get a
all the
couple
things, right?
get a couple of Gemini moon girls together with a lot
Yes.
of that. And that's what we
I,
do.
I'd be interested to see how many books you've got lying around,
Oh,
Mary.
well, you've been to my house. You've seen my library.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we both really, one thing in Merriman's bio is she said she encourages people to experience the sacred. And that's what my work's been all about. I don't believe in just picking up a book and learning keywords, and that's how you understand what's going on in this quantum cosmos. But anyway, we're going to talk about how Merriman works, how she integrates the Akashic Records. She also is a practitioner of, would you say a practitioner of vibrational astrology, which I've always found very interesting, but I've never had the chance to study that one as well. That's partly what her talk was about. And we're just going to rap really about all this because I just know it's going to go the right way. But I think you're going to find Merriman as her work as interesting as I do. So welcome.
Oh gosh, Louise, thank you. And it's really such a pleasure and honor to spend this time with you. I think we were kindred spirits from the moment we met. So
Yeah, I think so. And we've
yes,
got quite a lot of chart connections,
we do.
unsurprisingly.
We do.
so well, let's talk about a bit about how you got to where you are now and integrating all these things into your work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love to share that back in 2002, um, I was up in the North Carolina mountains. I'm from North Carolina, and my father-in-law had bees. And it had never occurred to me that one could keep bees just on their property. And I started just a relationship with these bees, his bees. And then for Christmas, my children were wanting this and that and the other. And I was like, oh my gosh, we need to give back to this world. And so Santa
Mm.
Claus brought beehives. That's what Santa Claus brought. And my daughter and I took the beekeeping course at the county extension agency. And this relationship with the bees became incredibly profound. Incredible.
Mm.
I realized through their vibration and frequency that we were communicating, that they were teaching
Mm.
me, that we were having a relationship together. And interestingly, I lived on a golf course at the time, probably not the best place to keep bees with
No,
all,
I-
but
probably not.
we don't know what we know. I am a state certified beekeeper and I'm an organic, no treatment beekeeper. So I don't
Mm.
put the medications on the bees. I believe we support our bees and
Mm.
allow them to create their own greatest strength from within,
Mm.
like us. But anyway, I was working out. I mean, I was living there, and the greenskeeper called me and said, "Oh my gosh, there's a swarm up on number seven." And I put on my bee suit and I went running up to number seven, and it was a huge swarm. And when they swarm, they get very broad and big and all over the
Mm.
place. So I was like, I can't catch them now. But the next morning I walked outside and those bees were sitting on the butterfly bush at my back door in a tight ball.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was right as my marriage was coming unraveled. And
Mm,
interestingly, one of the bees actually stung him on the eye one time out of this hive. And I thought I'd had developed such a relationship with them. I thought, what am I not seeing?
mm, hmm.
And then very soon after discovered his infidelity.
Ah,
So they were working with me.
yeah.
Even when I opened up my business, Hive Design and Porcelain, in Gastonia, North Carolina, it was really funny because the firemen came in one day and I was like, oh my gosh, am I on fire? They were cute. And and they were like, come with me. And we went outside and there were bees
Wow.
out of the building named the
Wow.
Hive Design and Porcelain. So
Wow.
30 feet up. And so it was actually in December of 2019 that I went outside and I noted that the bees had left the building
Mm,
and I knew I'd be leaving too. Yeah.
wow. Have your bees moved with you yet? I know that the
Bees are they're still in North Carolina. They're
hmm,
North
hmm,
Carolina bees. They
mm,
don't know how to be Arizona bees, but they're happily flourishing at my friend's
hmm,
farm there in North Carolina with their bees.
mm.
And I'll be getting Arizona bees this spring.
Oh, awesome. I'll
Yes.
have to come visit when I'm in Sedona
Yes,
then.
but that's a lot about the bees, but it's good stuff. They really do speak to me. But that also, I started studying with Linda Berry vibrational astrology in 2018, I believe,
Mm,
because the frequency really spoke to me.
hmm,
Working with the harmonics made so much sense to me with astrology. And like you, Louise, I love to, I want to hold all the definitions and everything in my head, but it's the embodied. And because I've
exactly.
also studied European gynocentric shamanism for so many years and traveled back and
Mm,
forth to England, to Greece, studying these and adapting the practices,
hmm.
where you shift into a different frequency in the shamanic practices. And
Yeah.
so it was the first form of acting,
Mm,
right?
definitely.
So,
Well, I use shamanic practices in my work as well, particularly in my. I run a Venus retrograde class every Venus retrograde, which is every almost 19 months, and I often talk about the myths of Demeter and Persephone and Hades in that. But
mhm.
I have a specific deck of a tarot deck that I use that's based on that myth that talks about the Melissae, and you probably know what the Melissae are, right?
I do. So those, the origin being on Crete,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
they are the bee nymphs, the bee mistresses.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in
Well,
that deck, the swords are called is the bees deck actually is the bees you know yeah.
so air and light,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yet they are
And that noise, the vibration, the sound.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's I see more and more how everything is flowing in. All of my interests are flowing into one another. And I figure by the
Mm-hmm.
time it's my last day, I'll figure out how to
Oh,
say it all.
I don't know if I will. I don't know if I could contain all the things. I've reached the point where I figure if I have a book in under kind of near my bed in under my pillow, then I'm absorbing it because I don't have time to read all these things.
I do. I sleep with about 6 books. But Edgar Cayce also slept with the Bible.
Mm, he did. Yeah.
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 Yes,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot
Mm,
to it. And you're right, there are
mm.
stacks of books around my chaise where I create.
And didn't you use his chart in the
I did.
presentation?
I
Yeah,
did.
he's a fascinating guy. Do you want to talk a little bit about yeah, you don't have to share charts and things because it's a great presentation that you do, and I know people will get other opportunities to have the more formal presentation. But that's how you work with it. Just something about how you explained it at that event really grabbed my attention. So talk about Edgar Casey a little bit, if you
Oh,
would
well,
mind.
I think, the sleeping prophet. One thing that I noticed that was so amazing about each of these channels, we
Mm,
looked at Madame Blavatsky, we looked at Edgar Casey, well, before that, Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Casey, and Dolores Cannon. One of the things I've found so amazing about their charts is they all had the outers on the angles.
mm,
So
it's
we're
true.
dealing with Pluto or Neptune or Uranus on the angles. I believe I actually can share Casey's chart because I have it right up here. So I think
Oh,
it
that's
just
handy.
adds to the
I
fun.
didn't I didn't want to put you on the spot because I tend to go like, oh,
I'm a Virgo. Um,
yeah. With a Gemini moon too, so you
that's right. Let me
don't.
pull it up for you. So, when we look at Edgar Casey here, you know,
Mm,
and the date I have, it's interesting because, like Rudolf Steiner, there's some debate upon his date, but we tend to
mm,
agree on the Scorpio rising ascendant for him. But here we see Uranus on the ascendant.
mm,
But I
mhm.
mean, it's coming through, but in Leo. So, it's so amazing to me. And look up here, Pluto in Taurus, the sleeping prophet.
That's yeah.
Isn't that
Wow,
amazing?
it
Yes.
is.
Seeing the node with Mercury over here and his being of such deep service in such an
Mm,
unusual way when we're looking at the Aquarius on the descendant,
mm,
a usual way of being in service to others, putting
mm.
this form to it. His Saturn is actually on Rudolf Steiner's ascendant. So
Ah,
that,
oh, it is. Yeah, I'm just looking, I reacquainting myself with this chart.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I love how and have you found that, I don't know if you've even looked at it, have you found that their charts living on?
That's so fascinating that you asked that question because that actually trilled through my mind last night. Like
Mm,
wondering how the chart, like to look
mm,
at them right now with the transits and how they're living on it.
mm,
And, even as I was just looking at everything happening in Pisces over here,
mhm,
node. And so, the node is right here between,
mhm,
the North Node is right between Saturn and Venus, which is interesting to me also because with the North Node moving through Pisces right now, what a feeling that I have, and I think other astrologers have, of how the world is opening to
oh,
remembering this craft, remembering this skill set that's not only astrology,
mm,
but it is the Akashic Records, this field that is
mhm,
this field of infinite knowledge and wisdom
mm,
that's ours. I mean, we have our gnosis within, but we are creator, we're able to pull from this eternal field. And
mhm.
we've only bought into it through our own limited mind that we're anything less.
And it's almost so vast. It's really hard to put into words. I'm
Yeah,
always trying it with my clients. But
kind
have
of.
you heard of a circumpunct, which is the symbol for the sun? By the way, it's called. Well, anyway, it's the symbol for the sun. I describe it as you're in the middle and the cosmos is around you in the sun, but then you can also reverse
Oh
that
yeah. Oh yes.
the cosmos is in the middle and you have it all within you. So,
Oh, absolutely. As above, so
mhm,
below, as within, so without. I love it.
mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
And here, like all of these different foundations of the records, of the source of
mhm.
all that is. This is something, Louise, I don't know if you and I talked about it, but I found it so interesting that in the Bible, and it's funny, I'm a Southern girl. Uh,
Mm.
Grew up, I was a Sunday school teacher. I know the Bible pretty well.
I
And
went to Sunday school too. Yeah.
And so, but I love it. The biblical book of life is in Revelations 2012. Isn't that
Mm,
funny?
mm.
There's never any accident, I think. It's 2012 when we really started to
Wow.
awaken. And and I saw the dead, small and great, stand
Mm.
before God, and the books were opened.
Ooh, wow.
Isn't that so
In
great?
2012, yeah.
Well, and
Well,
it's Revelations 2012. So
yeah. Yeah, I've long said that much of the Bible is based on astrological kind of
100.
cycles, everything. Yeah. Well, I'm sure they all are actually. I just can't.
Yeah.
Just.
All the different traditions.
Hmm.
And we did touch on the Melissae, which
Hmm.
which are the honeybees, and the Greek mysteries and the Oracle of Delphi. So,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also I'm a Kundalini practitioner, so I naturally gravitated toward that Pythonic energy as well. So
Mm.
really realizing how everywhere I turn, if it piques my interest, it probably goes back to vibration and frequency.
Yeah, I think everything does, and everything's kind of come to me through my life like that. I did Kundalini yoga for a while. I had a great teacher, and she stopped teaching, so I stopped doing it. But
Oh,
mm, yeah, she had a child, and
take us to Edgar Casey's,
mm,
take us to his harmonics so we could look at that.
mm,
So, one of the things that I'd noted looking at these folks is that there were similar overlaps in their harmonics. So, realizing what was so significant to me is to realize, Louise, like nothing's an accident. You and I didn't meet as an accident. We,
mm,
at just this point in time, were really vibrating at a similar frequency. So, we were calibrated to come together.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then also I think channeling these higher realms, is it here we see 7 times 27 or 7 times 3 times 3 times 3, um,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 times 3. So, being able to pull out the meanings and then to look at the planetary circuits here. So there's an
Mm,
even deeper level of this because we're creating these circuits that are completed in here. And
mm,
so this is giving us a deeper understanding, as we see in Uranian on the dial as well. We get this deeper understanding of the moment. I've studied Uranian with Michael Bryan, and I'm
mm-hmm.
having a lot of fun with that too. So
I love him, Michael
I
Bryan.
love him too. I was doing his Kabbalistic tarot with him this morning. So
Oh, I just don't have time to study all these
great
courses.
time. Yeah,
It's like,
it's a little study group more than a class.
yeah,
So
yeah.
a little,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it's
Mm,
just interesting to see here how his not only his chart, but how his harmonics are really defining him as the oracular presence.
mm,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Now, talk. Well, I know what they are, but tell my listeners more about the Akashic Records and how you open the records and work with it with
Yeah.
astrology. In fact, you were going to open the records.
Yes, we will. And so you know what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open the records
Hmm.
and for this little time that we're together, and then we'll talk more about it and let you ask questions. I'm going to have you put both feet on the ground. Deep breath. Yeah, left hand on the center of your chest, right hand on top. All right, I want you to bring your attention to the warmth of the coolness of your hands as they rest upon your chest. What we're doing is we're bringing attention to this physical body, this magnificent vessel that you chose to incarnate in this lifetime. We're seeing every cell from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, revitalized, healthy, and functioning perfectly, and we are grateful. Our next breath and bit of attention brings us to our emotional body, the part of our being that feels. We're so deeply grateful that our emotions show up, pinging all the different parts of our body, helping to inform us on what is right and wrong, what is true and what is not. And we are grateful. Our next breath and bit of attention brings us to our mental body, our mind, this magnificent part of our being that thinks, that reasons, that creates. What a magnificent gift this is, and we are so deeply grateful. And finally, we bring attention and gratitude to the spiritual body, the part of our being with no beginning and no end. It is eternal, and it is just a snap of the fingers that we are embodied on this earth with the spirit at this time. And having brought attention to the many levels of our being with deep gratitude, we are ready to open our Akashic records at this time that we're together for this podcast. I, Beverly Merryman Cassells, and Louise, please state your full legal name.
Louise Eddington, born Hodgkinson.
Beautiful. We center ourselves in the light of the divine, and as we do so, we open our heart centers. In our mind's eye, we witness the radiant, vital heart light that shines from within you and within me. We see this radiating out from our being and growing toward one another as we create a circle or lemniscate of light between the two of us. We open our crown chakras, allowing this light to flow up through the tops of our heads and merge with the light of all that is. And in this sacred space of remembering, surrounded by the light of our Creator, we are opening the Akashic Records for this podcast and time together, inviting in the angels, the guides, the ancestors, and anyone with the highest light and good who wishes to come forward to speak with us to do so at this time. And with this, the records of this podcast are open.
Mm.
Yes.
Ooh, that made me tingle.
A lovely process, and it's a process for
Mm.
every person. It's
Mm.
We always have a direct connection to our creator, to the
Mm.
records, but it's beautiful to do it in a formal and grounded way.
Mm.
I think pulling that in with the records, I mean, with the astrology is incredibly profound. And I find in giving someone a reading, I used to separate them. I don't separate them.
Mm.
We always open up the records on a reading because, like as you were sharing reading a chart, I have been taught very well how to read a traditional chart and begin with the
Mm.
ascendant, work my way
Oh.
around. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful process, and it's a great process to keep as an underpinning. But
Hmm.
really going in there and allowing the records to say, this needs to go forward at this time.
Yeah.
This needs to be spoken, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then also, it's a beautiful space to be able to stop in the course of a reading and say, is this from the records or is this from me?
Mm.
For me, I need to back up a little
Yeah.
bit and ask the records.
Yeah.
So it is being the hollow bone. It is going back to the shamanic
Mm.
practices of allowing myself to be emptied,
Hmm.
filled. I love that there's a beautiful term. It's a Greek word, kenosis,
Oh, yeah.
which this word, which
Mm.
means self-emptying.
Yeah.
Jesus on the and the transfiguration was emptied to be filled. And so
Mm.
I think on a smaller level, we strive to, or at least I strive to do this within myself, to empty
Mm.
myself so that I can be filled with the light and the wisdom of something greater than myself.
Mm. Oh, well, I do too. I definitely go. I don't formally open the records like you do, but although I loved how you open them, very different to how I've experienced it before. But I feel myself go into a different space when I'm with a client in a consultation.
Yeah.
I could be really tired. I could be like, really frazzled from a very busy day, but it doesn't matter when I'm in consultation because I do literally kind of just go, I'm not there really anymore. So yeah.
And I think that's very much the way that um, more directly that Edgar Casey and
Mm.
Dolores Cannon have experienced.
Mm.
Even though they were more removed when we're more present, but
Mm.
really allowing spirit to come through.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, can I put you on the spot and would you look at somebody's chart that I think it's nobody alive, so it's not a I'll give you their details if you like, and just see what you see in that because for some reason I had to look his chart up just earlier this morning, so it feels like anyway, it's Nikola Tesla if you don't have his
Oh,
chart
okay.
already.
You know what? It's so funny. I'm going to lower one because we had your chart up. So I'm going to
Mm.
Tesla's chart and see.
Mm. In some ways, I'd rather look at him. Although mine is endlessly interesting, but he's
Yours is
just
very fascinating.
mhm.
Okay. All right. And his birth date?
July the 9th, 1856,
1856.
11:59 p.m.
I was born at 11:59 p.m.
Oh, and
That
that
was
was
uh
he was born in Zadar, Zadar, Croatia.
Zadar.
Hmm.
All right, got it. And did you say 11:59 p.m. or a.m.?
PM. So it
Love
should come up LMT time zone
it. Okay.
with 2-degree Taurus rising.
Okay. I have a 2-degree Taurus rising. Yes.
Hmm.
And guess what? Interesting thing. I'm going to share this very quickly because you're going to be tickled by this. We just spoke about when we've looked at all the charts.
Pluto on the ascendant. Yep.
It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Mm,
Almost a mystic rectangle there, but not quite.
mm.
Um, yeah.
And look at his 12th house, Jupiter and Neptune in the
Jupiter
world, and a
and
North Node, of course. But and he's had Chiron going over his North Node, and he came to me because I have a client who comes back every now and again who channels him, and she and he have all these chart connections. So I got to know his chart quite well. And for some reason, like I wasn't even thinking about our call this afternoon, um, he came to me again this just today, and I had to get his chart up again to look at it. So, can we look at his kind of frequencies and
they
things? Do
are.
you
I
think?
just wanted to note, the ruler of his ascendant is right down here
Mm-hmm.
on the IC. And I think that's very, very powerful, especially in Cancer. I mean, just like really going, plumbing these depths, this ancestral
Mm-hmm.
um, depths. He's really pulling from beyond himself.
Oh, and you know that degree, 14 Cancer, is where Jupiter, Venus, and Sirius all met on August the 12th this year.
Really? So
Yes.
fascinating.
I
So
know that because that's the day I published my book.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
What good thinking on your part.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I'm just looking at this real quick, just to, have Neptune, Mars in the 12th.
mm. And the new moon on December the 19th is opposing his Mercury in Sag. So it's at 28 Sag.
Yeah,
Mm.
right there in the 9th.
I've just had this feeling because apparently he had a lot of kind of unpublished work, a lot to do with clean energy and, all those things he talked about. I kind of have a feeling that something about his work is going to come back into our collective with
Oh,
this.
undoubtedly. I mean, he
Hmm.
also, there's several people who could have been in my talk, and I should probably add them even to extend the talk, and he's one. I mean,
Hmm.
very interesting. So are you able to see the chart?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
you see this that came back up. So we're seeing, it's kind of funny when we look at his highest vibrations over here. I mean, when we look here, we see 5 times 3. This is,
They're not showing again. I don't know why they don't
okay,
show.
I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to bring it
Yeah.
back.
Mm.
Um, so what we're seeing here is, you can see it
Ah,
now.
yeah.
It just doesn't like to show it,
Yeah.
whatever crops up.
Hmm.
So, what we're seeing here, I want us just to take us to a couple of numbers. Here we have a prime. I see this a lot in people who channel
Right.
prime numbers being very prominent,
Mm.
because I think, a prime number, of course, it's indivisible, but I mean, it is focused. It's very concentrated, focused, right? It cannot be divided. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of what, and this is just what Merriman thinks. It's there's no basis in it.
Well,
Uh,
e- yeah, except from working with charts.
Right, except for working with charts and just
Yeah.
really realizing that, a lot of times also in channeling and working with the records or anything, it's being open but
Mm.
contained at the same time. It's kind of like
Mm.
being Saturn and Jupiter at the same time, Jupiter and
Yeah.
Saturn at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Saturn and Neptune, even with
Or Saturn.
with their impending conjunction that's coming up.
Well, you know what? That's
Mm.
how amazing is that? I
Mm,
am so happy you said that because when we think about that, at 0 degrees of Aries with
mm,
the intuition
mm-hmm.
and this opening, and especially following this water, I mean, this continual dance of the water trine, which
Yes.
I described it. I was like, at points in my newsletter, at points in this water trine, it's been like picking up somebody else's glass at the Thanksgiving
Oh,
table and getting a big sip of backwash because that's the way
oh,
it
it
felt.
really has. Oh, yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
But
Brilliant way to describe it. Oh.
that image just came to me. I was like, that's how it's felt. I feel like I'm really getting good information and so on and so forth. And then I feel like I am in stagnant water
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the bodies are
Yeah.
floating to the top.
Oh.
So, but when we look at it with the fire and that
Mm,
fire coming together at 0, yes, I think it's a collective awakening.
mm,
I absolutely do in many
mm.
ways. And I don't think it's tomorrow everybody runs outside and says,
No.
I'm God. But I do feel like it's a space where people are, they're where astrology will become more important, where the
Mhm.
Akashic records are something that people will open on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And, you know, opening the records, realizing you're not alone, realizing that we're
Mhm.
calling in the frequency and the vibration of who and what we want to walk with.
Mhm.
Amazing. How empowered we really truly are.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the boundaries and boundlessness thing almost. It's the Saturn is at least the physical self and world that we're aware of,
Right.
that we think is real. I don't know if it really is anymore, to be honest. And then Neptune is just like this expanse of everything.
Of
So
everything.
yeah. Mhm.
It's that's fascinating. So when we are going to go up here, we're going to look at Tesla's top vibration.
Mhm.
Right now, we don't have its chart. We can't see which planets are at work right now. That would take me a minute too
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Just understanding this vibration, because
Mhm.
we could also work with the midpoints, so which is also really fun. So harmonic 17. This is
Mhm.
one who incorporates their insights.
Mhm.
They blend everything, perspectives, beliefs, custom, habits, different viewpoints, historical data, that Venus down on the IC with the sun,
Mhm.
you know, it's again bringing like what he values forward. And
Mhm.
you know and these different, and they do this without prejudice, uh,
Mhm.
or bringing in a lot of prior assumptions. I think that's really important about 17 is it's a clean slate.
Right.
And so it can be very theatrical, but it's absolutely a non-linear way of thinking.
Mhm.
It incorporates many different viewpoints. Um,
Mhm.
and then 19 is, again, reiterating how to see from many points of view, to
Mhm.
glean a better understanding. So you could see him, like as we're doing this, I am visualizing him walking around, whatever he is working on at that time, walking
Mhm.
around and looking at it, getting up on a ladder, getting down
Mhm.
below, just seeing the perspective from every angle. And
Mhm.
19 brings it brings that openness we were talking about, that Neptunian kind of openness, receptive, interested in the insights of creative people too, philosophers, scientists,
Mhm.
abstract thinking, and
Mhm.
probably very well read as well. And then we look at
Mhm.
this 13, and we Louise, before we started, we looked at Louise's, and she has some um, pretty fascinating harmonics in her chart. But we see this three. Three is flowing energy. It's
Mhm.
like a trine, but not a trine, if that makes
Mhm.
sense, because they're not aligned necessarily with their houses or anything, but it is free flowing energy. And 13 brings that element of that the same thing that you carry. It's the need
Mhm.
to transcend, the need to move beyond,
Mhm.
and in a really free flowing, way. And so this gives me very much the feeling that as he's working, probably a bit ADD,
Oh,
right?
No, I have no doubt, having just tuned into his chart, but also,
Right, right.
also we're looking at this, and I didn't plan this honestly. We're looking at this as we are 3 days away from a 13-degree Gemini full moon.
Yeah.
That is, and of course, 13 in the tarot is the number of transformation and death and rebirth, and it's the eternal return. Because the 13th hour is the first hour of the next 12 and things like that. So and here he is. We're looking at him. So
Working.
we might be blowing people's minds here, but it's just you can't make this stuff up to my mind that he
Well,
kind
we
of
can
just
make it up
yeah.
either that you and I join together, and you're a
Hmm.
12-degree Gemini moon,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
I'm a 14-degree Gemini moon.
and there 13 right in the middle.
We're
Yeah.
all being illuminated, but we're right now in the middle of a void moon. So I wonder if anybody even sees what we're talking about. But
Well, I think they'll be interested.
yeah.
So looking at how you work with astrology, and when you look at his chart and his harmonics, do you have that feeling, that strong sense that I do, that something is going to come through in this immense portal of change that we're in? Um, I
Yeah,
think,
I
yeah, I
think
just,
what I'm feeling more is for myself is the chart in this conversation really
mm,
prompted me to the Saturn Neptune
mm,
conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries, and
mm,
this, following this very um I think it's been a very personal time. I mean, I
oh,
know we have a lot of things going on out in the world
mm,
that occupy our time and thoughts and so on and so forth. But what I have sensed and felt with my clients and with just the people I'm around is there's been a lot of drawing in, a lot of
mm,
people becoming very internal and getting very quiet right now,
yeah,
and, or as quiet as we can get in this madcap world, right?
yeah,
But really, and really, I think part of that is all of the water. I think
I
that's,
think so.
having, you know, having Mercury and Mars and Venus all, or different timelines, but really in
Mm,
relative ease, right through Scorpio, going through
mhm,
Scorpio, and then Mercury retrograding back, and then the whole Saturn Neptune story, and Saturn sitting there at that 25 degree for
mhm,
what, from October 27th to December 28th. It's kind of,
yeah,
why do I know this? It's exactly opposite my sun.
yeah,
So that's why I'm so conscious of it. But also the awareness of it is
mm,
what it told me is
mm, yeah.
sit still and let the water flow through.
Mm. And it
Receive
feels a bit like a purging as well, though, to me, a
as
cleansing.
as it flows through, it's picking up debris. It is
Mhm,
eliminating the things within myself and the people,
mhm,
places, and things outside of myself that need to just flow on because of
mhm,
the vibrational change, because of the frequency change, because I believe this is the way the elements are working with us. They are shifting our frequency, whether it's flowing water that's cleansing
mhm.
us, fire that's burning away illusion,
Yeah, I
or
agree.
even the fire. So, yes, coming up, I do believe very sincerely that with this, we are moving into our next phase of understanding that we have the ability to communicate beyond the devices that we have in front of us.
Mm, yeah, interesting. And because he was so kind of scientific, I guess, because he did. What do you think to kind of AI being a bit of a channel, kind of coming in as well?
It's AI. What a fascinating conversation, right?
Mm,
I don't think it just rests with astrologers. I think it's every
mm.
field.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny. Maurice and I were having this conversation, and at one point in time, and I was like, I think you just got to make AI your bitch.
Yeah, I use it, but I use it. I tell it what to do. Yeah.
I mean, I think we do, and I think it allows us to elevate and
Mm,
escalate. our ability to communicate with one another. I think it can contribute to too much information, of course,
Oh, absolutely.
contribute to misinformation. So I think
Mhm.
we are the luckiest people on the planet, Louise,
Mhm.
because we're astrologers. We have these technical minds,
Mhm.
and yet we have a whole lifetime of experience with literature, with the old way of
Mhm.
studying.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have this. So we're not, I think younger folks are at a disadvantage
Mm.
because I think information can become very disposable.
Oh, it can indeed, yeah. But
Right.
I don't know how I think our kids are similar ages. My
30,
kids,
30 and 33. Yeah.
oh, mine are a bit younger, but mine really aren't online much and are not delving into the information like you think some might. They kind of have switched off.
Mine are
Yeah.
mine are not either. It's very interesting. They
Mm,
they really aren't. Um,
mhm,
but it's I think there's a real beauty in just
mm,
knowing how to learn.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
That, and the joy of learning is
Mm,
beautiful. And AI can be an incredible tool for, giving us more time to do the things that we enjoy and still
yeah.
get our workout and things like that. But, and still find a way to cultivate our voice. Well,
Mm,
I've shared it before that, when I had the hive, I always
mm,
had a manager of the shop.
mhm,
So, but I would have to get newsletters out. I would have to get things out. And of course, it was
mm,
a design house. So we were designing things all the time. And
mm,
so I always had like a built-in editor with these folks. And so they would go, this sentence isn't making sense. This isn't, you're not finishing the idea or whatever. You've got something dangling over there. And so it's really beautiful. Though I have been guilty of sending things to a couple of my old managers still to read for me. But yeah, to be able to send it through and go, what am I, what point, I'm missing the end of the point. Help me figure it
mm,
out. And I think
mm.
it's really been powerful.
Cool.
We have to hold on to our agency.
Oh, we definitely do. Yeah. And when I say my kids have switched off, I don't mean that they've switched off learning and life, but
No,
they've
no, no.
switched off that constant scrolling kind of.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
it's ingrained.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for looking at Tesla.
Oh, that
We
was
can
fun. Yeah.
we
This
can
is,
have a quick look at mine again if you want,
yes, yes,
and
yes. Let's go back.
tell people what you see because it was I loved what you were
Oh,
saying. I was like, oh.
yeah. Let's see. We're going to go back to you.
I've just realised that Nikola Tesla's Uranus is at the same degree that Ceres was discovered at.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's see.
Wow, 23 Taurus.
23 Taurus. There we go. Yeah. All right.
Mm,
I'm pulling you
mm,
back up and I'm going to pull up your harmonics to begin
mm,
with. So Linda Berry actually created this frequency finder, which you integrate into Sirius. And
mm,
it's really, really powerful. Even just in the little bit, I'm pulling it up right now. I want
mm.
this chart to be
Yeah.
up here. See it. It's so powerful because gosh, to have to try and figure this out on your own would be a huge deal. And she's actually coming out with an updated version
Oh,
sometime, sometime pretty soon. I'm gonna text her and see when that is.
it'd be great if there was one that you didn't have to buy Sirius first. But you
Yeah,
never know.
I think it's
That
all
might
in.
happen.
All integrated. So as we said right here, Louise, and I know you a bit.
Mm,
Your top harmonic is 173. It's a prime number. So, I mean, and it's a pretty high prime number there. So,
mm,
this is telling me, even though I don't know anything really about 173, um, what it brings up in my intuition, especially with the records open, is, this is a very high level of thought
mm,
that is happening. And, it is, it it can, I mean, I think a higher prime can skate up to being unyielding or maybe a little
mm,
dogmatic in the thought process, but it's not, I'm not making that an edict.
mm.
it's just, and I can appreciate that. I have high harmonics, and it's
Mm,
like, I think a lot of times really strong thought is constructed when you're unyielding in it. I think it's beautiful, as Tesla showed, to be able to take a whole bunch of different information and fold it
mm,
in and create a hypothesis.
mhm.
But I think there's also some real gold in being able to hold on to a strong foundation of thought,
Yeah, yeah,
build on that.
yeah. And I can see that, the word unyielding. Yeah. Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't want to use
Hmm.
unyielding as a bad word.
No, I don't
I
see it as bad
think
either.
as a solid container.
Mm, yeah.
So,
It's
and here we went over here.
mm,
And so the reason that she's created this way is because these lower vibrations, they have the first 30, they have very strong definitions for these, very strong proven
mm,
definitions for these. These are harmonics that require, here we, some of them we
mhm.
just don't know. So
Yeah.
here we have 11 times 2, which is 22. So
Mm,
we spoke about that 11. That is like, this is this energy, this little road runner that's in Louise. Like, I'm
mhm.
going here and I'm going there and I'm seeking this adventure and I'm seeking that adventure and I'm a pioneer. I'm an innovator. Um, it there brings this love of music and frequency and dance and vibration and dynamic activities,
Mm,
that Mars in your chart, right? And
mhm.
so, and this can also, I asked you, and especially when I saw your moon, it was like, oh, do you have a little insomnia that
Mhm. No,
that
well, and it's not terrible, but definitely sometimes I can tell when my mind won't go to sleep. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
You get on an idea. I bet when this book was coming out, there was a lot
Oh,
of, you may not have thought about it as insomnia as much as
mm,
inspiration.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, but when we're talking about 11, we were talking about the 11, but the 2 is doing this with others. So you're a
Mm,
wonderful teacher. You're
mm,
wonderful. You're hosting the podcast. I spent time with you at the conference. You met everyone. You had wonderful interactions with folks, deep conversations. I mean, this is living this harmonic. And then
mm,
the second one is the 2, which is again saying, I am someone who can be very deep and high in my thought and my thinking
mm,
process, but I am also one who wants to walk with others. I
mm,
don't want to leave anyone behind. The one being one of your top harmonics. Also, one is your natal chart, straight up. Like we saw the other charts through the harmonics, but this is your natal chart. This is Louise, is what you see is what you get.
I've been known to even say that to people. You know what it's like when you're online. You get the rude comments, on
Right.
things, and I've been I just say, well, if you don't like it, don't watch or don't read or don't whatever.
And what beauty. I mean, even as we
Mhm,
were talking about the whole time that we've had all of this water going on and
mhm,
this intuition becoming, I believe, cleansed and refined in many ways.
mm,
And then moving into that beautiful fire and with the nodes doing their work as well. But it's like really stepping into this truth of being.
mm,
I mean, allowing us greater, um, much greater allowance with our
mm,
individuality, because as we're realizing the oneness of our spirit, that when we look
mhm,
into one another's eyes, we are gazing into the eyes of God. And,
mm,
this allows us or invites us to really celebrate our individuality. And
mm.
correct, if it bothers you, you know what? Tune in elsewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not for you. That's okay. Whatever. Yeah.
Like being able to celebrate that
Mm,
and go, yeah, maybe they're not for me, but yeah,
mm.
what's their part? As a good Southern girl might say. And
Oh,
I like this 30-second harmonic because
mm,
here again, it brings in that very strong inner drive you have,
mm,
and it's that talent that we saw with the 11 and with the
mm,
13. We didn't talk about the 11, but I mean the 13. But it is bringing in this drive, like you're not stopping.
mm,
And you just, it's just like for you, let's see, how do I express this? It is just a really strong, let's see, I'm going to look back here. When we look at two and five, so
mm,
five is that creative, free-flowing energy. I had to get back there and break them down.
mm,
You can do this here as well, which is nice. Uh,
mm.
we know what it is, but you can do it here and be able to share the vibe.
So
But
just for, my listeners who may not understand what harmonics are, how would you describe harmonics? I know what they are, but
so, one of the things, and I actually really wanted to like have a good definition for
mm,
folks. So I had, it was a course founded and developed by David Cochran.
mm,
Um, he a lot of this was observationally. It's a very much so understanding that we are vibrational beings.
mm,
And so, on his page or on his school's page, he even cites Ptolemy, who wrote
mm,
the classic book now known as the Tetrabiblos, and you know, he he referred to the music of the spheres.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like the aspects, how the chart's divided up and how those strings play, right?
How they play. So
Mm,
you take the chart 360 degrees,
mm,
and so if you're dividing it
mm,
to get like a harmonic, so
mm,
you divide it, that fifth harmonic
mm.
that is free
Venus.
flowing, yeah, right? And
Hmm.
so divide 360 by
Hmm.
5 and you get 72 degrees, which is
Mm,
a quintile. And
hmm.
so they're associated with like with creativity.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so so it's beautiful to be able to look at it, but then to see like if you multiply that by 5, um, then like two planets that are 72 degrees apart multiplied by 5 will be conjunct,
Mm, yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
See? Yeah. And so
Hmm.
that's where you're seeing, oh, wow, this is creating this um music within our chart.
And it is a little bit mind bending to those
A
who've
little bit
kind of,
fun.
well, it is,
Look
and
at my
it's
notes.
kind of,
Look at
and
that.
that's because in a way it's not just of the mind. So it is. So you know what I mean. It's kind of to be understood in a different way. It's literally kind of because in some ways like the universe kind of folds back in on itself as well as you said if you kind of yeah.
100%. I mean, that I
Mhm.
think that's the beauty of it. And this is where
Mhm.
we're really, really going. I mean, just
Mm,
realizing um like this is we're living a symphony.
mm,
It's how much better to just flow with this symphony than to fight the
mm.
symphony. And
Yeah.
to realize that we're really always being led. Like this
Mm,
symphony it's been orchestrated, written, composed, the word I'm looking for, composed, uh,
mhm,
you know, forever throughout time. Like these chords
mm,
have been in place. And so we don't have to worry the way maybe I think I
mhm,
have to worry about things and this, that, and the other. Like everything is, it's in play. So
mm,
riding it and dancing with this,
mm.
being in the joy of the symphony.
Well, Merriman's a Virgo. Virgos like to worry, but
I do
but
like.
I was looking at this and listening to you, and obviously just tuning in. We've got the records open, and I just think I've never really known what I was doing. I like to say, and I don't mean that in a negative way either. It's just things have just come to me because I work with the vibration in a way. So
100%. It is, and
mhm,
it's so phenomenal, especially
mm,
I think when we look back,
mm,
realize how perfectly timed the most important pivot points in our life
mm,
were. And you know that kind of just the dream work just popped into my mind right now.
Mm,
And actually, you know, for the month of December, I am sending daily, or not daily, but with important astrology, almost daily prompts out to
mm,
a group of collective dreamers, and anyone who wants to
mm,
join is welcome to. They're based on the astrology, but this is where again it's a conscious desire to flow into the collective dream,
mm,
to flow into the movement of the planets.
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
so it's interesting. Tonight's prompt is about Venus coming into sextile with Pluto,
mm. Yeah,
and we're playing a little bit in the Eleusinian mysteries with that.
we
Um,
are, especially because she is in her underworld behind the sun
is
right
in her underworld.
now.
Exactly,
Mhm,
exactly.
mhm,
So it's very profound, I think, to be able to, and you know, she is in her underworld, but also what I think is nice is she's been through Scorpio and she's had this
mhm.
scorpionic experience, and she's just jumped on Santa's sleigh
Yes.
in the Sagittarius.
Woohoo! Yeah, she has.
So you think about emerging from one of those deep, dark
Ooh,
experiences, and then immediately running into Pluto,
I
even
know.
when he's friendly.
Oh, oh, let's stop the share for a minute and just finish talking. But you know,
Okay.
you were talking about looking back, and I just remember I lived in Connecticut for a while at the late 80s. And a long story short, I got invited to sweat lodges run
Mhm.
by actual indigenous people, not copycats.
Yeah.
And I got taken to one full moon. Here we are on a full moon again. I wonder if that was a Gemini full moon. I bet it was. Anyway, and
Yeah.
we went and we camped, me and two friends, all three of us in a tiny tent. And we did one night sweat. And then the elders all said, we're doing a, a sweat at this time, and you will wake up if you're meant to be in it. And out of the three of us in this tiny tent, I was the only one that woke up.
Yeah.
And I had the most immense visions in that sweat lodge, you know, that have stayed with me forever. And I don't know how I can't even remember how I found my way to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was that kind of really, it was the same time that I discovered what I would call real astrology, other than sun signs as well, around that same time, close to my Saturn return. Amazing turning point. So the more you're open to kind of these experiences just coming your way, and you know, if you want to know more about your frequencies and harmonics and vibrations, contact Miriam, and where can they find you?
I'm merrymancastles.com. So
Mm,
MERRYMANCASSELS. And
mm,
you know, right now I sort of blend everything together with my
mm,
readings. I let the records guide us, and also
mm.
the individual's desire. What are you
Yeah,
seeking? What do you want to know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
again,
Oh,
thyself. So important to know thyself.
I do too. You know, I have an intake form for my readings, and I ask what's the questions, what are the issues, but I always go over them again at the start of the call so I can kind of tune in, and we may spend just the whole session kind of talking about Pluto or something.
Well, sometimes sometimes those planets want to be talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a lot of times it's folks that, you know, they want to press down or push
Mm,
down the energetics. And there's a lower octave and a higher octave of the
mm.
expression of every planet in every aspect.
Oh,
And,
definitely.
you know,
Mm,
really focusing on that can be
mm,
incredibly empowering for people.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's
You're
the
not, you're working to the higher octave.
or the high take the high road, my teacher used to
Yeah.
say. But
Yeah.
you know, it's a lot of numbers. I can picture some of the people on my channel watching it and going, oh, you know, all these harmonics and vibrations. What does it mean? I love numerology, and to
Yeah.
me, I just look at them and I just tune into that number and say what it means for you. Right? Would you
Right.
suggest,
I
especially
think,
those higher ones? Yeah.
yeah, and some of the
Mm.
higher ones, I mean, I'm, it's out of my pay grade.
Yeah.
But you know, I think especially in the course of a reading. I mean, we were really playing today. In
Mm.
the course of a reading, we're not going to be so focused on those numbers that
No.
way. What it is more about is looking at something and saying, "Wow,
Mm.
okay, here is this 35th
Mm.
harmonic," and just knowing that that is, this beautiful, organic, free-flowing creativity
Mm. Yeah. And then
that
then I have to break it down. I'm going, oh, there's a 3 and a 5. Oh, and that makes an 8. So
it's there. I mean, I think for like
mm.
astrology-minded folks, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Mm. Because
Yeah,
I love numerology in that way too, but I tend to let them speak to me more.
yeah.
So it's a whole deep subject, but I really love how you kind of honed in on what I would call like the visionaries, the prophets, the channelers, the things like that, because I really think they are wanting to be heard again right now. They were kind of sidelined for a while, right? Suppressed.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
they were, you know, when you think about Madame Blavatsky, I mean, she came into the roaring into the world, cussing and smoking cigarettes and living her own
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
traveling to Tibet and all over, but
Hmm.
also had profound health issues, was very lonely,
Hmm. Yeah.
very isolated away from, had rough relationship with her mother, so the feminine
Mm.
relationships were very difficult for her.
Mm.
So there was not a strong sense of home or rooting for her. So you also can deeply understand, and for me, especially when I tune in with her, there's a very deep empathy for
Mm.
seeking,
Yeah.
seeking. She was so lonely.
Yeah. And a lot of these people didn't have easy lives, to be honest.
They,
Not
no,
just her,
no,
you know. Have you looked at Alice Bailey as well? Because I always find her.
boy, I need to. I need
We
to.
should look at her too.
I
Another
know,
time.
I know. We can play infinitely with this. It's so much fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, to be honest, like the harmonics are not even my main go-to thing. That's
No, I just found them really interesting. But
really just something I like to throw in at the end because it's almost like icing a cake,
yeah, yeah,
just to be able to look at it. And
yeah. And you might not even mention them. I guess sometimes you've probably looked at them yourself to understand the person. And
funny, some folks, it's like I need to pull the harmonics,
mm,
and it's a lot of times it's complex personalities,
mm,
and
yeah,
and then sometimes they don't even cross my field to go look at
yeah,
that. That itself has given me enough information.
yeah. But well, Merriman works in very magical ways, and I love astrologers that do that. I've started kind of calling it quantum astrology because
Yeah.
everybody always says, "What kind of astrologer are you?" And I don't know who was your first teacher. I was kind of an evolutionary astrologer, but I don't follow the evolutionary astrology formal method
Right.
anymore. I'm an astrologer, and I tune in.
I think that there's real beauty in that. And I think that
Mm.
also allows us the place and the diversity to
Hmm.
exist for a world that is opening to our gifts,
Mm.
to a world that has AI that folks will very soon realize that's may not interpret your chart right, or
Oh,
it's going to give you a
it
you know
doesn't.
a very surfacey type of interpretation where we're really going with much greater depth
Mm.
and heart.
One thing it can help with though is say if you are new to astrology and you're trying to learn the blending, because astrology is all about the blending of all of
Right.
the things, right? And you're studying, say, your Venus, and you have Venus in Scorpio, like me, conjunct your midheaven, and just go and get some ideas from AI about what does that mean when you put all this together, and it kind of just activates your other thinking. It's not going to give you an answer, it's just going to help you process it, I think. It can help with things like that. But
And
anyway,
I think they're beautiful ways to train it
there
and
are.
as your asset, as an asset for you. And it's not,
I've tried it though by putting in chart details. It gets everything wrong.
it doesn't do it right. No,
No.
it doesn't do it right. We've all tried it and
It's like, oh. Oh,
Okay.
one other thing. Aren't you doing something at Omega in New York with Maurice Fernandez?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things I'd love to throw out
Oh,
there.
yeah, do.
Tomorrow, I think I get the approval with Apple for Hexa,
Oh,
which
yes, she's got an app.
coming out. It's oracular technology for the modern mystic, which
Mm,
is taking our astrology and of course, it will interpret a chart and do all of that
mm,
as we want them to do. But it also will have daily dream prompts
mm,
based on the astrology and with the goal that we are collectively dreaming together to dream the
mm.
world anew.
Yes.
And we're doing it in partnership with our planets.
Mm.
Tonight we're dreaming with Venus and Pluto. Um, but
That's
we're
deep dreams, by the way.
those are deep dreams. And
Mm,
and so that's a beautiful app. So we're going to actually have, and it will interpret your dream.
mm,
Have a dream interpretation that comes back. What I do when I do group dreaming is I weave the dreams. So,
mm,
and that leads into Omega, which will be
mm,
solstice of 2026, so the 19th through the 21st at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. And I'll
mm,
be joining Lynn Bell, Maurice Fernandez, and Rachel Lang. And
mm,
we will be looking at the wounds and remedies of this nodal cycle that we've been in before the
mm.
nodes will pop over into um, Leo,
Leo and Aquarius.
Leo and
Mm,
Aquarius. But looking at these wounds and remedies,
mm,
also looking at Chiron. And
mm,
there I will be also we'll be doing a Kundalini Kriya, bringing in that beautiful serpentine energy, that serpent energy.
mm.
And we will be dreaming together, which will be
Wow.
a lot of fun. And then 2 days before, I'm going to do, because it's a lot of travel for some folks,
Mm.
is I'll do a 2.5 day, I'm calling it the Manhattan Mystics. So we're going to
Oh,
be in Manhattan
mm.
and actually join with Amir Bey. He's going to an
Oh, I
astrologer,
love Amir.
and
Yeah.
he's going to teach us coffee grinds, how to read coffee grinds, and
Mm,
go to the Theosophical libraries. We're going to go to the Rose Room of the big central library, um, and
wish I could do all the things. I'm
we're
too
going to
busy.
do and we're going to go to the Rubens. So it's going
Mm,
to be really a lot of fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, yeah, she's one to watch, everybody. And I can't believe we never met before
So it's
September.
timing, right? Just absolutely in planetary
I
progression.
know. Because I don't even, well, I do know it was Demetra George that inspired me to go to that conference. This, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, it's in Sedona, and I have a little place in Sedona to stay. I have to go,
Absolutely.
and I just knew I had to go, and
Beautiful
I,
conference.
I'm finding out why.
Beautiful
Well,
conference.
thank you. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy this conversation, but please don't, get too tied up trying to understand all those harmonics and
Oh,
numbers.
God.
Just for those watching, just know that it is like playing a violin or a guitar or a harp or something. They are just vibrations, and that's what you are. So
But we all are. Thank
thank
you.
you.
We're going to close the records real quick.
Oh, yes.
So both feet on the ground, left hand on the center of our chest, right hand on top. Oh, great Creator, thank you for this beautiful time together, for every soul that has found its way to join our circle. We give deep, deep gratitude. Give deep gratitude to you, our Creator, for the many, many gifts that you shower us with every day. Thank you for opening our hearts and our souls and for bringing peace throughout this planet. We thank you and we close these records. Amen, aho, and so it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.